In an effort to bid a final farewell to her departed mother, a young girl places her mother's cell phone inside the coffin as a symbolic promise that their bond will never break. Yet when she later receives a call from within her mother's grave, she is struck by a terror unlike any she has known. As the sun dipped below the horizon, tinting the sky with shades of pink and blue, Emma and her family made their way to St. Michael's Chapel where Grace's wake was to be held. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow, punctuated only by the soft sounds of weeping and gentle sniffles from those in mourning. Clad in black to honor the family's grief, the attendees gathered around a chapel adorned with Grace's favorite white flowers, a stark contrast to the subdued lighting of the room. At the center rested a wooden coffin, encircled by flickering candles whose flames danced in the mild breeze drifting through the open windows. Emma, dressed in a small black frock with a neat ribbon in her hair, slowly approached the coffin, her trembling hand held tightly by her Aunt Catherine's. Her heart pounded as tears streamed down her cheeks, fully aware that she was about to bid her mother one final goodbye. Gazing at Grace for what might be the last time, the little girl noticed a serene expression on her mother's face, as if she had at last been released from the pain that had burdened her in recent months. Throughout the week, friends and family had taken turns at the pulpit, sharing cherished memories and heartfelt stories about Grace. Despite her tears, Emma listened intently, a gentle smile forming as she recalled the joyful moments they had once shared. At just years old, Emma was facing the most challenging period of her life, having lost her mother to breast cancer, a relentless adversary that, despite valiant treatment efforts, had taken away the woman who was her ultimate refuge. Emma's life had always been a shared journey, a brave little girl and her determined mother facing the world together. Grace had given her everything she could, even on the toughest days, forging a bond that went beyond that of a typical parent and child. More than just a caregiver, she was Emma's closest friend and confidant. Now, with her mother gone, Emma was left to navigate an even steeper, lonelier road ahead. The future loomed uncertain without the guiding presence of the one who had taught her so much, yet she wouldn't be entirely alone. Emma went to live with her Aunt Catherine, Grace's sister, who had always cherished her niece and supported her sister through every hardship. With no children of her own, Catherine welcomed Emma into her home, determined to fill the void with love and care during this time of overwhelming loss. Together, they sat side by side, eyes red from crying and tissues damp with sorrow. Aunt Catherine wrapped her arm around Emma's shoulders, offering as much comfort and strength as she could muster. As the week drew to a close and people began to pay their final respects to Grace by laying flowers and whispering consolations, an unexpected act of bravery unfolded. At that moment, Emma gathered her courage and rose, holding her mother's cell phone in trembling hands. Sensing what her niece intended, Catherine asked with concern, "Are you sure, dear?" Emma nodded through her tears, resolutely declaring, "I want her to know that I'll always be with her, even if we can't talk anymore." Her voice nearly choked by emotion. The little girl made her slow, deliberate way toward the coffin. With every step, the weight of sadness, fear, and anxiety pressed upon her heart. Knowing this was her final goodbye, she yearned for a meaningful connection, a way to preserve the deep bond she shared with her mother. Gently, she set the cell phone beside her mother's body and whispered, "Mom, I love you so much. Now you'll always have a part of me with you. Whenever I miss you, I'll imagine you're just a phone call away." That small device had long symbolized the unbreakable connection between them, a lifeline that had grown even more precious during the months when hospital restrictions had kept Emma from visiting Grace. With tears streaming down her face as she stepped away from the coffin, Emma's anguish was met by Catherine's comforting embrace. Together, they resolved to face an uncertain future, keeping Grace's memory alive in their hearts. The very first night after the funeral was especially tragic for Emma. Catherine had tenderly arranged photos and mementos of Grace around the room, hoping to bring some solace to the grieving child. Yet as Emma gazed upon these familiar images, the ache in her heart deepened, each memory recalling the final farewell and the emptiness that now defined her nights. Tossing and turning in bed, she clutched her pillow tightly against her chest, as if it could ease the pain of losing her mother so suddenly. Tears flowed freely as she tried to make sense of the void that had been left behind. In that moment, Emma experienced a tumult of emotions, fear, anger, and profound sadness, and an all-consuming grief that seemed to seep into her very being. Yet, life had to move forward. The next morning, at her new home with Aunt Catherine, Emma sat down for breakfast while Catherine prepared to leave for work, a duty that now included caring for a grieving child. Catherine, a dedicated professional, kissed Emma goodbye and said, "I'll be back later, sweetheart. Make yourself at home. When I return, we'll head over to your old place to gather a few more of your things. And remember, if you need anything, Sophia, our neighbor, is just next door." Determined to adapt to her new reality without her mother's constant presence, Emma agreed. Though the memory of that final farewell and the cell phone left in the coffin lingered in her heart, once Aunt Catherine departed, Emma found herself alone, seizing the quiet to explore her new surroundings and carve out a personal space to connect with her mother's memory. As she sifted through Grace's belongings in search of something to console her, her own cell phone unexpectedly rang. Startled and a little frightened, Emma picked it up and froze when she saw her mother's name appear on the screen. Hesitation gripped her as a mix of fear and disbelief surged within her, her body trembling. How can Mom be calling, she wondered, recalling that she had just placed her mother's phone in the coffin. Yet with a shaky voice she answered, "Mom, Emma, my dear, where am I?" came a weak, coughing reply from the other end. Overwhelmed, the little girl could scarcely believe what she was hearing. Tears welled up as a flicker of relief battled with her terror. Could her mother truly still be with her? How? How is this possible, Mom? You're gone, Emma sobbed, her voice quivering as she struggled to comprehend the impossibility. "Honey, where am I? What is this dark, narrow place?" Grace's voice, strained and panicked, resonated with each word. The terror in Emma's heart was palpable, yet mingled with a bittersweet relief and desperate hope that her mother's presence lingered in some form. "Mom, Mom, where are you? I missed you so much," she cried, her emotions spilling over. "Mommy, what's happening?" Her words, laden with sorrow, went unanswered as Grace's voice faded abruptly, leaving behind a deafening silence. Desperate, Emma began shouting, "Mommy, Mommy!" Confused and terrified, she couldn't tell whether what she had experienced was real or merely a dream. Frantically, she tried to call back, but every attempt met only with silence. In a state of panic, she reached out to Aunt Catherine, who, upon hearing Emma's distraught voice, hurriedly left work to find her. When Catherine arrived, she discovered Emma trembling and sobbing, the phone still clutched in her hand. Emma tried to explain, recounting the strange call and the unmistakable sound of her mother's voice. However, Catherine found it difficult to believe. She assumed Emma was overwhelmed by longing and perhaps even hallucinating under the strain of grief. Embracing her tightly, Catherine consoled. "It's all right, darling. I know how much you miss Mom. We all do." She stroked Emma's hair gently, though Emma's heart ached with frustration that her experience was met with skepticism. Yet the calls did not cease. With every ring, Emma's heart pounded harder as hope and fear surged within her. Were these calls truly from her mother, or was her mind playing tricks on her? As the conversations grew increasingly alarming, with one call finding Grace sounding utterly terrified, Emma's distress deepened. "Emma, my dear, I don't know where I am. It's so dark and cramped, I can't breathe," Grace pleaded in a trembling, panicked tone. Overwhelmed, Emma felt dread consume her entire being. "Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm going to ask Aunt Catherine for help," she managed to say, desperate to alleviate her mother's suffering. "Please, Mom, try to calm down. I promise I'll do something," she cried out, tears streaming down her face. But as quickly as the call had come, it ended abruptly once more. The frequency and intensity of these calls escalated, leaving Emma to wonder if she was truly conversing with her mother or succumbing to a haunting delusion. Fearing that confiding in her aunt might result in disbelief or that she would be dismissed as unstable, Emma kept the ordeal to herself. Nevertheless, the relentless calls began to take their toll. Emma struggled to concentrate at school, her sleep became troubled, and a constant nervousness gripped her. One night, Catherine found Emma in her room, crying in desperate distress while clutching the phone. Convinced that Grace remained trapped and suffering somewhere beyond, Emma finally confided in her aunt about the ceaseless calls and eerie conversations. Worried and unsure of how to help, Catherine asked to check the call history on Emma's cell phone. "It's right here, Auntie, look," Emma insisted, showing the screen. However, as Catherine examined the history, she found nothing amiss. "Sweetheart, there's nothing here," she remarked. Perplexed and heartbroken, Emma repeated, No, it was here, Auntie. I swear it was here," before bursting into tears. Seeing her niece so distraught, Catherine recognized the depth of Emma's suffering and resolved to help. She arranged an appointment with a therapist who specialized in grief and trauma, understanding that Emma needed professional guidance to process her loss and the inexplicable phone calls. During that first session, the psychologist listened intently as Emma recounted her experiences and mounting fears. He explained that post-traumatic stress can manifest in various ways, including auditory hallucinations, a reflection of the deep grief and longing for her mother. As Emma began attending weekly therapy sessions, she slowly started to learn how to cope with the void left by Grace. In these sessions, Emma learned to express her emotions, sometimes through tears, sometimes with laughter as she recalled the happy times shared with her mother. Aunt Catherine joined many of these sessions, providing a supportive shoulder and sharing in the healing process. Together, they confronted their pain and found strength in their mutual love, forging an even deeper bond. Over time, the phantom calls and eerie connections diminished until they eventually ceased altogether. The therapy was proving effective, and Emma gradually began to feel lighter, rediscovering the joy of spending time with friends, family, and pursuing her studies. Despite the lingering absence of her beloved mother, the psychologist observed her progress with satisfaction and pride. He continuously encouraged her to express her true feelings and accept that, despite the pain, life must go on. At the same time, Aunt Catherine transformed into an even more devoted maternal figure. Through shared affection and support, they built new memories and formed a unified, loving family. As Emma matured, she continued on her journey of healing and discovered the remarkable strength that resilience brings. She came to understand that, despite the everlasting pain of loss, it was still possible to move forward and confront life's challenges. In time, she learned to cherish the joyful moments and the presence of those who cared for her even more deeply. Emma eventually moved forward, carrying her dear mother's memory in her heart and embracing a full, happy life filled with love and support. The spectral connections of her past became a distant memory, a reminder of a painful era that nonetheless imparted invaluable lessons to everyone who witnessed it. Years later, as Emma blossomed into a talented and determined young woman, she found herself ready to embark on the next chapter of her life. Heading off to college, she carefully packed her belongings, determined to take a piece of her mother's legacy with her. Amid the process of organizing, she discovered something unusual, a worn diary, carefully tucked away among Grace's keepsakes. It was peculiar, as Emma had never seen this diary before, and a surge of curiosity compelled her to uncover its contents. With her heart pounding in anticipation, Emma opened the diary and began reading the intimate entries penned by her mother. The pages chronicled moments of joy, worries, and reflective thoughts, all imbued with love and tenderness. As she turned each page, she felt Grace's comforting presence once again, savoring every written memory. Yet one particular note left her utterly baffled. Grace had described a haunting dream she experienced a few months before her passing. "I found myself terrified, trapped in a narrow, dark, and suffocating space where I could barely move or breathe. The oppressive darkness seemed to seep into every pore, intensifying my claustrophobia. Somehow, I managed to reach out to Emma using my cell phone, but I had no idea how it ended up in my hand. It felt like the last thread of hope keeping me connected to the outside world, my voice trembling as I cried." Grace recounted the overwhelming dread and confusion that had gripped her in that nightmarish state. The sensation of helplessness, the stifling atmosphere, and the slow, relentless suffocation by the thin air. With every passing second in that dream, the despair in her heart grew as she desperately sought an escape, a way to protect her daughter. The fierce love and responsibility she felt drove her to fight against the terror and suffocation, clinging to the hope that together they could find a way out of that nightmare. And then, everything went dark. Reading these words sent shivers down Emma's spine. She struggled to comprehend what she had just read. Could it be that the calls she received were not merely the manifestations of her grief-induced stress? Or, in some unfathomable way, had her mother indeed reached out from beyond the grave, just as described in that dreadful dream? Closing the diary, Emma was left with a flood of mixed emotions. Those haunting words stirred memories of pain, yet they also deepened her sense of closeness to her mother. Perhaps the truth behind the mysterious phone calls would forever remain shrouded in uncertainty, but Emma knew without a doubt that her mother's presence would linger with her always. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to check out the next video on your screen. It's sure to move you as well. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and activate the notification bell so you never miss one of our upcoming stories. and see you in the next story.